Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Todd Morin. I am the Accounts Director for the Midsize Banks segment here at J.D. Power. Today, we will be talking about J.D. Power's Midsize Banks solution with Qualtrics, our partnership and our joint solution. Speaking today, leading most of the call will be Joe Wheeler, who is the Senior Director for the Midsize practice, and in a demonstration by Eric Katzen, who's a sales engineer with Qualtrics. I would consider today's demo kind of a TED Talk. It's going to be pretty fast. We have 30 minutes, and just think of this as an introduction to the overall program. Real quickly, before I hand it over to Joe, I wanted to just give you an overview of the partnership. I'm sure most of you are familiar with both companies, knowing that J.D. Power, we've been around for about 50 years, being a leader in understanding that voice of the customer, providing a 360 view of really every aspect of a customer's experience in a variety of industries. Particularly today, we'll be talking about that experience in the retail banking segment, where they come to the branch or mobile or online. Talk about communication, advice, loyalty, advocacy, retention, and Joe will dive into that. Qualtrics, they are a leader in measurement, experience measurement across a variety of different channels. And the marriage of these two companies together provides a robust offering in helping you to give you not only a view of the experience, but how to elevate that experience long term and make sure you're measuring the right thing that's going to turn those measurements into growth to your bottom line. Today, we're not going to be taking questions through the presentation and answering those. I ask you to please put those questions you have in the question box on the GoToWebinar icon. Enter those, and then we will then answer those after the presentation and be sending an email out to all the attendees with the questions and then the answers from the audience. But with that, I want to turn this over to Joe Wheeler to go through our offering. Joe, let me unmute you and we can get started. Joe, you're on.
All right, Todd, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you. I'll jump right in from time purposes. As Todd mentioned, I work with Todd specifically in the Midsize Bank practice. Our approach, I'm an old banker, and so we look at things far more from a banker's perspective than we do a research firm's perspective, with the idea that we want to turn data into what next. In other words, how do you use all of the information that we have surrounding customer experience and their opinions and feelings and turn it into a strategic discussion? What do you do with it, right? So we take customer feedback. We'll spend a little bit of time going through some of the results also today from our syndicated study, the Retail Bank Satisfaction Study, which we are about halfway through for the year 2020. Very interesting information. We gather roughly 100,000 comments or surveys from around the country to gather this feedback. And we're basically, I love the phrase, we're looking in from the outside, right? So we get customers of all generations, affluence levels, across metro, non-metro areas, et cetera, and look in at their bank and have them sort of analyze and talk about what they see from a banking perspective, what they feel, what makes them choose banks, what makes them stay at the bank, et cetera. And so we take all of that and we spend a lot of time talking about strategy, because everyone on the phone call today knows that customer experience is so important. Happy customer brings more money and footings. But what we want to do is make sure that all of this work gets integrated. The what next is integrating all of the information into the strategic plan so that you can actually see how this helps attain forecasted growth. And then the last piece there is focus. Through those discussions around strategy, we aim to drive tactical channel priorities, branches, mobile, or any digital, online, ATMs, call center, et cetera. All of these customer touch points become very important as far as strategy is concerned. Next slide, please, Todd. So here's what we're talking about, right? A mid-sized bank offer is simple. It's about strategy. This is based on years and years of information we've compiled. As you look at this chart, you see going off toward the right where it says 900 plus. Those are what we're looking at is overall satisfaction scores from customers. And all of the other information basically talks about wallet share. So you can see the higher the customer experience, the higher the satisfaction with a bank, the more footings customers bring to the bank. So it's not just deposits, right? So from a lending perspective, or I should say being able to do the lending, right, with low cost funds, but then actually loans on an interest income perspective and investable assets from a non-interest income perspective. Everything leads to satisfaction around strategic growth. So think about your strategic plans, where the growth is expected to come from. That's where we start to focus on types of households, where in your markets, et cetera. What are those generationally? What are those households telling us, and how do we apply it to your strategic plan? Next slide, please, Todd. So how important is wallet share, right? From my days in banking, wallet share was always the big thing that we focused on. There's a couple of different things are shown on this particular slide. If you look toward the left, we break this down by bank size. So mid-size banks, we define mid-size banks as 2 billion up to about 50 billion in deposits. Regional banks, so those are the ones that are about 51 up to about 250 billion in deposits, and then the big 6 banks. And then we've also broken a number of those households that have 3 or more products with their bank into it from a generational perspective. And you can see, if we're looking to the left, mid-sized banks are lagging across the generations in multiple account households, right? So this is something to understand, especially, again, now think about strategy. My guess is that most of you on the phone have got a tenet in your strategic plan, and with 2020 planning probably just about wrapping up, that says, we're looking for organic growth. As you look for organic growth, this sort of outlines the opportunity, specifically for a mid-sized bank. So then if you look toward the right of this slide, we ask, same breakout now, mid-sized banks, regional banks versus big banks, the big 6 banks. What type of accounts do you have? And you can see that mid-size are lagging a little bit in savings. Credit cards, not as surprising because most of the mid-sized banks don't have a proprietary credit card. But if you look, even money markets, CDs was a little surprising, mortgages, personal loans, retirement, and investment accounts, great non-interest income opportunities. And HELOCs, even auto loans, right? The point here is, from looking at all of this information from a benchmarking perspective around customer experience, helps you identify where's the growth. First, we look at the strategic plan. What types of accounts, or from a footings perspective, are you looking for growth from? Then we look at the existing customer base, right, and what the potential is in your markets. And then we start to apply the benchmarking that says, this is what millennials want, this is what Gen Z wants, this is what Gen X wants. So this is where this stuff starts to come to life. Next slide, please, Todd. Now there's an awful lot on here. We won't go step by step through, but when you get this is as of wave 2 of the 2020 retail bank satisfaction study. So about halfway through the year, looking at all, again, across the size of banks. The important things the bullet points here are around big banks have improved significantly versus 2019. So halfway through 2020, we see the big bank scores up 5 points. Top bullet point in the middle, regional banks have improved over 2019 by 7 points. All the way over to the right, mid-sized bank scores are down 2 points. So then we want to look and see, well, all right, what's really sort of starting to drag this overall satisfaction down at mid-sized banks? The thing to keep in mind, regionals and big banks have traditionally lagged the performance of mid-sized banks when it comes to customer satisfaction, right? The news here is they're starting to catch up. So when we look, what's one of the biggest factors, the largest drop is the mobile banking factor, down 13 points. So this would be, but yet mobile, as you'll see in one of the coming slides, and I think it might even be one of the next ones here, is around those capabilities from a digital banking level are not as critically important as relationship, reputation of the bank, and a referral, right? And convenience, access to the money. So this is something, knowing that for the most part, mid-sized banks don't have a proprietary digital system, right? You're either dependent on your core or a third party for mobile and online banking. This is something that we can help, understanding all of these results can help you sort of level the playing field. So the brand image, the fourth bullet point down on mid-sized banks, brand image scores are strong across all attributes except for innovative technology. So the brand attributes, right, are things like, are you friendly, customer focused, relationship driven versus profit driven, those types of things. Very important to understand, again, because reputation is one of the big reasons we know that Gen Y, millennials, and Gen Z select a bank, right? So this is one of those things that starts to level the playing field a little bit for us. Next slide, please, Todd. So here, for instance, if you look, the sweet spot for mid-size and community banks, let me start over at the left first real quick. On a national basis, we know, right, from our study, 67% of customers visited in the last 3 months. So every one of those visits is an opportunity for a discussion and a relationship building piece, right? Fastest growing group in the United States is the emerging affluence. Emerging affluence described as under 40, earning more than $150,000 a year. These are the folks, these are the households we would want to bank, right? Guess what? They're also looking for advice. They are looking for their banks to provide them with professional advice. We know that millennials, as they age, come back to the buildings before making big financial decisions, right? Here's the most powerful thing, and again, from a strategic standpoint. So think about emerging affluence, millennials, high-end, high-earning millennial households. 58% of these households take action on the advice that they're given when they visit a branch or come into a building, right? Becomes very important from a strategic standpoint. If you look toward the left, what this is basically showing is across the nation, all the way over to the right, all over to the right, digital-only households have an average overall satisfaction score of 793. That is the lowest overall satisfaction score. This is another opportunity to level the playing field a little bit with the bigger banks when it comes to digital, because in the largest banks still have low satisfaction scores when it comes to digital-only customers. The reason, it's right up there in red, where it basically says those customers feel disengaged. They do not feel as though they have a relationship with their bank. This opens a great opportunity because most of the customers at a mid-sized bank fall right into that section there that says branch-dependent digital customers. These will basically be your Gen X, boomers, pre-boomer customers. It's great from a referral standpoint. Will become very important as we keep going through these slides. But keep in mind, digital only, lowest satisfaction. Those customers for mid-sized banks, biggest opportunity, branch-dependent digital customers. Next slide, please. So this becomes, if you look just in that red box, here are some of the key performance indicators that we work with and we identify for each bank. So if you look at these things, in the red box is the most important information I think that we can share, and that is what's the impact of each of those key performance indicators on the customer's willingness to reuse you? In other words, what's their willingness to buy more product from you? And it says, for instance, things like welcomed. Were you welcomed when you walked in? Has a 20% increase, a positive impact on a customer's willingness to reuse you. Best practices, using their name, saying thank you, asking if there's anything else you can do. 21% impact on reuse. The biggest contributing KPIs, key performance indicators, are communications. Again, keep in mind, right, I just said the lowest satisfied households are those that are digital only because they don't feel engaged. They're not being communicated with through their mobile banking application, right? In other words, this is how I choose to bank, but I don't get anything. Communication is not coming to me from the bank through this, my channel. Those have a 32% positive impact. when you get these, when the slides are made available and you get to look at this, absolutely critical, because these are things we can control, right? And this is what we work with the bank to understand from a benchmarking perspective, as well as an individual perspective. Next slide, please, Todd. So this one is it, right? This is the one we ask on a national level. When we look at Gen Y and Gen Z, we ask them, what's the main reason for selecting your bank? You see a positive for Gen Y, Generation Y, received a positive recommendation in both big regional banks and mid-sized banks is the highest, right? 13, 11, and 13%. Reputation, 12%. Convenient branch locations. You can read that as easy access to my money. You look way down at 8%, 6%, it's online or mobile under Gen Y. Gen Z, so the younger, even the youngest customers that we would have, right, received a positive recommendation. Family history at a mid-sized bank specifically, 25%. Convenient branch location. So remember, this is where that, so looking at generationally, the boomers, the Gen X, those are the sources of referrals. Those are the customers that are the happiest typically with the mid-sized bank. So we'd want to work with you to show exactly, right, what we can be doing to drive more referrals from particular households. Next one, Todd, please. So this, in wrapping up on my part, impact of mobile, digital banking, of course, here to stay, very, very important. How well do your customers, do the households that are using mobile understand it? So we see all the way over to the left, those households that don't use mobile at all typically give an overall satisfaction of their bank of a 778. If they use mobile, they get an 817. If they use mobile and completely understand the product, their overall satisfaction with their bank goes up to an 867. Huge, right? Think about the impacts here. So 75% highly satisfied millennials definitely would recommend the app. 64% of highly satisfied millennials use the app, feel that it influences them to remain with the bank. So attrition, fighting attrition, and 54% feel the app influences them to attain additional products with their bank. What's critical here, such simple things as a point of sale demo on their mobile capabilities. So this is the type of information we would work with from a benchmarking perspective and an individual bank perspective. And we integrate this now, think about this from a Qualtrics perspective. Next slide, Todd, I think, please. So this basically—
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, go ahead, Todd.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that's right. So wrapping this all together, and thank you, Joe, for the overview. What we're trying to show you here is we listen, we understand where your customers are in their experience, and taking that and applying the benchmarks, the industry insights, the expertise, the science behind that, really pinpointing which gauges can you turn that's going to maximize the opportunity for growth, both short-term and long-term. And then, as Joe has shown through his advisory services, being able to really pinpoint through his experience, through our research, how to take these benchmarks and layer it into strategy. Now think about it. That's just one part of this. Then say, okay, how do I apply this? Ongoing, real time. That's Qualtrics, and that's what we're going to get into right now. At this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Katzen, who will walk us through the overview of the program itself. So I'm going to make you presenter, Eric, and then you can go ahead.
Great. So I just started sharing my screen. Can you see that okay?
Not yet. Let's see. I don't see your screen, Eric. Try it again, if you would.
All right. Yep. Let me exit and come back. One moment.
So while Eric's doing that, to give you a little background of the partnership, what we've done is let's say, for example, we've identified those KPIs that have the biggest impact, the bottom line, from a frontline perspective. We know those from a strategy standpoint. How do you make those part of your culture? How do you make them, embed them with your organization, that every time someone comes in, are we measuring those right things? We know that these things have an impact on reuse, such as a greeting, using first names, saying hello, offering advice, offering any additional services. Those things have the biggest impact. Are we measuring the right things? And that's exactly what we do within the JD Power program. I see your screen now, Eric. It has changed over.
Great. Sorry about that, and thank you all for your attendance and attention. We're going to show you and walk you through 3 key components. The first is, how can we help you from an executive view look at your customer experience and what matters most? Secondly, highlight role-based access capabilities so that way you can spoon feed data to your key people and help them take action on areas that improve your customer loyalty. And then third, we'll show you how you can, in real time, follow up on detractors to turn them into promoters. So what we're highlighting here in this particular instance is taking all of JD Power's best practice and methodology and their intellectual property and showing you it on the Qualtrics platform. We've been a key partner to help build world-class banking solutions together, so that way you can understand what are your key customer experience metrics and how are you comparing to your specific benchmark peers. The technology is very easily able to help you understand what are your key customer experience trends broken out by region, by touch point, by geography as some particular examples. But as Joe highlighted, some of the key areas of how we want to help you improve your customer loyalty is looking at your customer experience broken out by generation. Where is growth going to come from in the future? If you're only focused on boomers, it's going to be very tough for you to drive organic growth, but also help you consume the data across your key channels and touch points, whether it's the branch, call center, online banking, mobile application, email, chat. Qualtrics can provide you a technology to not only engage your customers on those key channels, but help you understand how you're performing and what ultimately matters most. Now, what we want to highlight here in this particular case is, what kind of financial impact does your customer experience have? How willingness are your customers to use additional services and increase the number of products they have with your bank? Qualtrics can help you visualize and understand your share of wallet with your customers today, but then you might start asking key questions like, what action should you take to have the largest impact on improving your customer share of wallet? And this is really where Qualtrics shines. The technology can help you understand key areas that are not only under or overperforming, but are also important and correlated to your share of wallet. So that way, based on your specific data in real time, you can understand key things like, how does issue resolution correspond to improving share of wallet? How does the courtesy of the branch associates correspond to improving share of wallet? You can identify exactly where in your customer journey your customers are experiencing pain and frustration, but most importantly, help improve your return on investment by focusing your efforts on the right areas. And then of course, the technology has capabilities to help you analyze unstructured data, so that way you don't have to go through and read responses one by one. The technology can help you understand what your customers are talking about and how they're feeling with very quick ease of implementation and providing you interactive capabilities to drill into the particular data with a few clicks of a button. Secondly, we want to highlight how we can help your key employees and colleagues take action. So what we want to showcase in this example is a regional branch manager logging into their Qualtrics platform to help them understand how are they performing and what action they need to take. This regional branch manager is able to see their key scores that matter across customer loyalty, text analysis of unstructured feedback, and their overall JD Power index score. For those key individuals, we're able to help them understand how are they performing against the KPIs that matter to the banking industry, like promptness of being served, knowledge of branch associates, so on and so forth. And what we can help you do is identify key trend metrics, and if those trends are dropping like we see over here on the right hand side, what action should you take, right? So that way this regional branch manager can drill into the underlying branches that report up to them, like we see over here on the right hand side. But most importantly, the Qualtrics platform spoon feeds action that's going to have the largest impact on improving your KPIs. So what the technology is doing is stack ranking all of your measurements and reporting these back in a role-based manner. So that way this particular regional branch manager knows that the number one action they need to take is improving their branch associates' concern for customer needs. We can see that the technology has an impact score and helps the branch manager understand where they are performing to the overall company. In this way, we can help branch managers understand what are their areas of opportunity, what are their areas of strength, and ultimately what action do they need to take to improve customer loyalty and drive share of wallet up. And then of course, like we saw before, the technology has capabilities to view individual customer verbatims and feedback to help you drill down to the key data and insights in real time. The third and the final part of the demo, we want to highlight how we can help you take action in real time based off of your customers' feedback. And what we want to highlight here in this particular case is at the conclusion of a survey response, whereas Qualtrics can look at any specific events. Secondly, if the customer answered a question in a particular way, let's say for simplicity's sake, they are a detractor, then third, we can execute a task. Now, of course, we can integrate with your core banking system, with your CRM, as well as a handful of other technologies. But in addition to this, what we want to highlight is looking at the Qualtrics native ticketing functionality. So as I switch to my mobile phone here in this particular case, we can highlight an example ticket as customers left you feedback in real time. So that way we can notify your correct employee, whether they're working in a branch or working in your call center or one of your executives for your key and high value relationships or your commercial customers. So that way in real time, you can see all of the information, both experience data that Qualtrics captured, as well as operational data coming from your core banking system. So that way, instead of only knowing what happened, we can help you understand customer perceptions, emotions, and feelings. And from here, Qualtrics has other functionality that effectively help you close the loop and turn this detractor into a promoter by documenting this fully configurable root causes and moving this ticket from open throughout your custom and unique workflow to closing it out. And then lastly, just like we saw from a dashboard point of view, we do have a mobile application where you can view your key metrics broken out by customer type, as well as looking at the key drivers that matter most for improving your loyalty, improving your share of wallet, so that way you can effectively compete with the big 6 banks. Thank you for your time, and I will turn it back over to Todd for final conclusion and remarks.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And letting everybody know that we will be sending you this information via email, the recording, and you'll get this today once we're concluded. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me directly at the email shown here. We will be collecting all the questions and then be sending them out, one single document, all the questions and answers from the audience. Also, please feel free to email me, and we can definitely set up a more in-depth overview of the platform and JD Power's advisory services. And welcome any questions at any time. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Joe and Eric for being presenters, and we appreciate you all joining today. Have a great day.